Okay.
Madam Chair, just page 9. It looks at some and there's deficits, operating deficits.
Financial manager Marnie Rushford was the one who prepared the financial statements. So I believe she was meant to be joining us this morning. So I'll answer any questions on that.
If you have any specific questions, we could note those down and email those out to you, since she's simply available. So, Steph, would you mind perhaps noting those down, and we could ask that Marnie for a response? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm raised that just to help you to unpack some of the issues that are presented in the report. That might impact us further down. Maybe Adrian, maybe you might comment.
But I just make a comment rather than get down here. Yeah, I think it's just there's the times we're living in, the inflation is taking effect. We had the Morrinsville water outage. Probably the water is the biggest one, and yeah, just the costs there with chemicals and treating and the new regulatory environment we're in. And like I said about the water outage, we've had some additional costs there, obviously, with supplying water and getting through that period of Morrinsville. Of course, the good news is that we've got the Lockerbie bore in progress now with the central plant, and that will add a huge amount of resilience to the Morrinsville water supply going forward. And of course, that's significant investment of capital, and it will also cost money to operate in the coming years. So it's never a one-off cost, it's always an ongoing cost when you add infrastructure into your books. Yeah, I think it's just, the cost of fuel, everybody's the same, and costs have gone up, so we've been caught a little bit. Additional costs, but and like with the SPA project, we're doing our due diligence on that at the moment, seeking investors. James, I think it's I think the main thing Crystal was presenting was the our surveys, and obviously it's very difficult to please people at the moment. would be my comment. It's we're tracking, like as Crystal said, there's a portion that are on track, some aren't, and of course there are those that are only measured at the end of the year. But you can see by the statistics that we're quite.
We also debate the NEIDA part of that that survey, because kind of feel people go, man, with NEIDA, they're not, they're probably more satisfied than dissatisfied. But yeah, you're going to know if you're dissatisfied.
But the question I have though is, how do you choose those 200 people? Are they ratepayers?
So we have a company that we contract out versus research. They do a random sample of ratepayers within the district, and that can be a combination of phone surveys and also online surveys too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm just wondering whether it's worth looking into this to make sure that you get diversity within that. I mean, like for a lot of our farmers, they don't own homes, so they're not ratepayers, so they're not getting a voice. And so I don't know if that's something to look into. But
that's a very big point.
Yeah. But they still use the rubbish service, and they still
because it's still, Chris, it's still landlines too, isn't it? Is that right? Yeah, I'm now guilty of, not that I could contribute to this, well I could, might skew the result, but I'm now guilty of every time my phone rings, it's a survey of some sort, and I'm now at the stage that I've just politely declined. So we were talking about trying to go to mobile and stuff, would we?
I'm happy to inquire further with our contact direct versus research just to see how they're ensuring diversity with their sampling.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Speaking back to the finance side, sorry, Krista, I know that you're not going to be answering questions about that, but we're just thinking about the fact that you'll be getting development contributions, financial contributions from the hefty developments that are going on around Matamata. I was a little bit disturbed when we were out on site, and I was out there too, when the developer was not aware there was like a master plan with, riparian planting involved in the Calcutta master plan area. So I can see that, council's going to be pleased to see development contributions coming in, but there's also there's been a promise to us that effectively you put a master plan out, that's a promise to us that there's going to be, fences and tracks and riparian planting and the sorts of things that have been identified within that, and one assumes that those will be delivered out of them. We've asked the developer and they said they'll go away and try and figure out what is going on and where those parts of the master plan are going to be funded. But we're just concerned that those development contributions might get sort of sucked into the general budget and spent on Morrinsville water. I'm not saying Morrinsville water is not important, but it's just like there should be some thinking and targeting for what has been committed to in that master plan process, as well as the consequential infrastructure that's required for the so many more houses that are going in through the, particularly our concern is within our Takiwara is Matamata. But there are some big upgrades that are necessary for wastewater treatment that are really being driven by new developments. So I would like to know how those wastewater treatment, property water supply, maybe water supply stuff that has come across our desk, how are those infrastructure requirements of new development being funded, and how are those master plan promises being funded for those community amenity side of things. We went through the master plan process, and there is an understanding that would be delivered, and it was concerning that the people who were doing those piecemeal bits and pieces developments had no idea.
Andrew, the master plan you referred to, is that because that would be part of a resource consent, would it, for that development? And they'd have to meet, from as part of the resource consent, there's no ifs, buts, they have to meet those criteria. So I see your concern, but I don't know whether that was just, I don't know what that would be, but they would have to meet that.
People are buying blocks of land within the master plan area and then developing those. Like one we need to look at was super fund. Was one of the national super funds that had bought this. They had no idea about anything else that was required. So who is delivering on those?
It's very odd because overall resource consent for that area has to be followed. The planning rules have to be met.
It may be that they are, but we just don't know. Nobody was on the site was able to tell us. So it could well be that it is.
I guess it's understanding where they're at, because if they bought the land, then if they've done their due diligence around a limb report and stuff like that, they would find out about a master plan, presumably. It's not until they come to develop that then they'd be probably caught in.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't meet with any council staff that day. It was just the people that are involved with that project. But yeah, they don't have any. It's like they don't know. They didn't understand the requirements.
So you've got several here. There's the Calcutta one out on.
Yeah, this is the one behind Calcutta. Right, a little bit further.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Kind of the
O'Sullivan.
Makes up. Yeah.
Because we had
Yeah, our understanding it was with New Zealand Super Fund.
It's certainly selling of blocks to different developers. And there are broader things that came through in that master plan. Oh, it was a few years ago now, 2 or 3 years ago, 2 years ago at least. And they had things like major riparian works along the edges of the Manawhenua. And to me, the whole of that development should be funding and driving that development of those, you know, expensive amenity items rather than leaving it to the last, you know, cab off the rank who doesn't ever develop their bit, or, you know, there's ways that those things come.
That's an interesting feedback. Sort of separate from this.
It is separate, but it's a big financial thing, and I saw the development contributions, you know, were going in without necessarily, and I'm going, well, hang on, shouldn't they be being spent on those reserve infrastructure around that area as a development plan? I'm happy to be corrected and find out that it is the developers that's supposed to be doing it and that the council be making it happen.
We would probably be caught in the once it's in, the council would then maintain it would be the expectation, but we need to, let's come back with some feedback.
Sorry, maybe us.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, Krista, don't need to hijack your item.
There's no further questions? No? Right. Some of the reports being received, please.
I'll move.
Thank you. Second. June, all those in favour? Aye. Concrete carried. Thank you. Thank you, Krista. 8.2, much. No way. Let's go on.
Gary and myself are going to cover this one because Jenny Cochran was away on holiday. Yeah, so presumably you've read the item around the Waitangi Day funding because of the wet weather and that's cancelled, so we haven't expended any of that money. So there's an opportunity to obviously push them to celebration. And that's all.
One question. I don't know who has applied for that creative. Do you sit on that? Do you sit on that panel, Mata? Yeah. Whether any area applied for Matariki funding through there, because I think that was the plan that we put earlier. But if they have and they have been approved, are they allowed to is it an option for them to redistribute that funding for another project and take this for their Matariki instead? Or can they just add it to the pot? I don't know. We didn't, our handling did it, but if there was another area in that position.
There were 2 applications
Oh,
to that fund.
I'm just thinking, like, if I'd applied and then this money came up, I'm like, oh, can I use that other funding for something else then and use this for Matariki?
Or can we just expand our plans?
Or can you just, yeah.
So there were 2 funding applications. I think one was part funded. And I thought it was.
But not Matariki, was it for Matariki? Oh, was
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I'm just wondering if there is an option, if they wanted to, that they could come back and reuse that money for something else and use this funding for Matariki. I don't know if that's possible. Oh, yeah. So, yeah.
Morning all. Sorry, I can answer that question for you if you like. So we did receive 2 applications for Matariki, and there is, I can, as the administrator, give dispensation to change it to a similar event. So it could change from Matariki to something else of a similar nature. So yes, that is possible for those Matariki ones.
Yes, Madam Chair, just the point that the forum had recommended that council to provide ongoing annual funds and just what they might look like.
That'll go in the long-term plan discussions that we're kicking off. Just this year and, well, it's next year really, because it strikes before the 1st of July. So, yeah, that's for the next financial year as well. Report on this. But
Sandra might be able to just attest, but there were $17,000 being distributed in that fund.
Oh, great. So it's enough for a day.
Not funded, not.
Awesome.
I guess the thing is, just out of interest, Matamata applied and Hanarangi.
No, we didn't apply that.
Didn't apply.
Yeah.
We have.
Matamata and Hulk. So I guess if there's an opportunity there, if there's a little bit of pool of funding there available, if there is some more engagement across the community. Like it's not a huge amount of money, but it's available.
Yeah.
And if because the thing is for me, well, speaking from my perspective, is to build a greater understanding in the community around what Matariki means. And I think the story is beautiful. When you listen to the different iwi and their story around what Matariki is, I think is something that's that's something we're very proud of and to share with the community is fabulous.
Yeah, I think it's just not the iwi, it's the community.
It is the community.
It's not community,
To bring
the
them
schools
together.
and everybody's coming in. Yeah. Well, this is what we're finding. Yeah.
And it's education, it's learning and it's really, really positive.
No other questions. I'll move the report we received. Someone second. Rahi Tonga. Those in favour say aye. Contrary, carried. Thank you. 8.3 district plan update.
Morena, Chair, Mayor and members. Unfortunately, Kamesh is sick today, so you have me presenting her item. So just giving a update on where all our plan changes are. So Papakainga, so we have been out for submissions just after Christmas in regards to the Papakainga plan change, and we're currently out at the moment for further submissions. So that gives people the opportunity to comment on the existing submissions that have been received. We received a total of 54 original submissions, and we have had a couple of submissions to date, but usually most of those further submissions come in closer to the closing date, which is the 26th of April. I've also included in the bottom part of the update some information in regards to the National Planning Standard for Highly Productive Land and how that affects this plan change. So there is a specific exemption for land set aside for Māori reservations and also for Māori owned land under the Māori Land Court. So a lot of our provisions will not be affected by this national policy statement. However, if it doesn't meet those criteria that are set out there, A, B, C, right through to F, then if Papakainga is proposed on highly productive land, so that's class 1, 2 and 3 land, then the HPL will need to be considered as part of that process. That's just answering a question that was raised at the last Manawhenua forum. Any questions on the Papakainga plan change? Awesome. I'll move on to the Hauraki Golf Forum. So the only meeting that has been proposed this year at the beginning of March was unfortunately cancelled, and that was all around the cyclone and those councils that were trying to deal with that as their main priority. The next meeting is coming up in May. In response to one of the questions that was raised at the last meeting, the Hauraki Golf supports Manawhenua and communities as part of its core forum statement, and that was attached to the agenda. Excellent. I'll move on to Waharoa. So Waharoa Plan Change is about the zoning and development of Waharoa, and we have been doing this in partnership with Ngāti Haua. Where we're at the moment is that on our website we have just updated a summary of our hui and our online consultation that was held last year. So the key findings of that is now available on our website. We are now working into the second phase, which is going and talking to key stakeholders, as well as we've engaged Warren Gumbley to undertake archaeological assessment of the community, and that has again been working alongside Ngāti Haua. Awesome. I'll jump onto the next one, which is a private plan change for Calcutta Developments, and it's proposing approximately 41 hectares of industrial land opposite or adjacent to our transfer station in Matamata on State Highway 27. And that has gone through the submission phase and also has gone on to the further submission phase, and the further submission phase closed on the 21st of March. The applicant is coming back at the moment and responding to some of the points raised through submissions, and we're looking to set a hearing around the sort of September-October timeframe. Unfortunately, due to getting consultants to get updated reports, the applicant actually won't have all of their response until the end of May, beginning of June back to council, and that's why that timeline is so far out. One of the things that has impacted that plan change again is the NPS, or the National Policy Statement for Highly Productive Land.
What does that impact look like, Ali?
So the main impact in regards to the Calcutta plan change is that if you're proposing to rezone on highly productive land, you need to prove that that demand is needed within the next 10 years, and that is the best place to locate that demand. So we had originally done a housing and business assessment, and that looked out 30 years, and definitely we needed 40 hectares within the 30-year time frame. But because the NPS for HPL came in halfway through this process, it's kind of changed the framework that plan change is going through. There was a number of submissions, up to about 5, that actually submitted on that it was inconsistent with the highly productive land NPS.
Is that the same for plan change 49 as well? Is that affected?
Yeah, that will be affected as well. It will have to be looked through exactly the same lens as providing residential, business and industrial land that is needed for the next 10 years. One of the things for industrial development is it is harder to go up, where residential development can go up. You can do 2 stories, 3 stories, you can intensify far easier residential development than you can for industrial. But yes, it will be covered by the same provisions. Excellent. Moving on to the Fonterra Waitoa application. So this application is to amend the noise emission control boundary for their structure plan or development area plan. And they have provided all of the information, but we are just seeking a couple of things of clarification to make sure that it is achieving the desired results, but also mitigating any effects on neighbours. So we are nearly there. The next steps for that plan change would be to take it to council and seek notification of that private plan change. Avenue Industrial Park. This is another private plan change that seeks to zone approximately 14 hectares of rural land to industrial on the outskirts of Morrinsville, adjacent to the current development that is happening on Avenue Road. Again, this plan change has been changed, or the framework has changed because of the NPS HPL. The difference a little bit in this one is that it is only for 14 hectares, and that is more aligned with the demand that is needed for in the next 10 years for Morrinsville. At the moment, we are just finalising the application, and the applicant is hoping that in May this will be put before council to accept it for notification, and then it will go through that notification, further submissions phase before off to a hearing if required. And so that's,
Ellie,
yes.
Andrea here. So has council taken up the private plan changes, this one and the Calcutta industrial one? Or are they going through as private?
They are going through the private, so both the Fonterra, the Calcutta and the AIP private plan changes. The applicant has requested that council only accept it, not adopt it as a council plan change. They would like to stay in the driving seat, and that's something that council has done for both Calcutta, but they're yet to make that decision for Fonterra and for AIP, Avenue Industrial Park. So just to give you a bit of context on that, Andrea is a planner, so understands the full complex of that. When an application for a private plan change comes to council, they have 4 options that they can recommend. So one is to accept it. The private plan change remains with the applicant and they pay all the costs associated with that application. The second one is to adopt it. That means council takes over that plan change, and now council is sitting in the driving seat for that plan change, and that it wears all the cost. The third one is to decline the plan change, and there is very little scope other than if it doesn't meet the resource management requirements to actually decline a private plan change. The fourth one is to defer it to a resource consent. So what the council would be saying there is that the resource consent process is the best process for this application, because it's more akin to a resource consent than a private plan change. Excellent. So I don't actually have any more projects to highlight, but happy to answer any questions.
Questions? So, Ellie? Did you ask about master plan?
A little bit off the topic a little, but we were looking at the financial 6-month report and noticed development contributions coming in. And it just reminded me, I'd been out on site to have a look at one of the subdivisions in that Calcutta master plan area. And there had been like, excuse me, a master plan that had been provided showing a whole lot of things, including riparian planting and walkways and that sort of thing. And we happened to ask the developer, which was the National Superannuation Fund, who purchased one of those blocks there to develop, about how those amenity features of the master plan were to be funded and developed. And they had no idea. They didn't even know about them at all. So I was just asking the question during the 6-month report, how are those to be funded? And James was saying that it may be that it should be required under like the resource consent, so the landowner should be providing, but given that these blocks of land are being sold to individual landowners, is this something council's taking development contributions to fulfil upon the master plan, or is it something that still sits with the original owner of that land? Would you know, or is there something you can find out for us?
I can definitely find out for you. Development contributions sits under Susan Campshoff's portfolio or responsibilities, and I'm definitely aware of the superannuation fund land that they have purchased. And I'm aware of the wider master plan. So the wider master plan isn't zoned currently, so that would be something that would be considered through a development area plan, which is the new structure plan under the National Planning Standards. So that discussion would be held then. In regards to the current land that's owned residential that I understand superannuation have acquired, anything that is a wetland or a pond or a reserve, definitely if it's a stormwater infrastructure and it needs to be planted out, then that's something that the developer pays for, because that's part of their solution for their stormwater. So the wetland and all the plantings will be covered by the developer prior to council taking that over. And generally they have to maintain it for 1 or 2 years to make sure that those plants have it established. In regards to any additional ones, where if council wants to request some additional land or plantings or more than what the developer is providing and required to do under the resource consent or under the district plan, then that's when we have a conversation, and typically a developer agreement is established and that sets out the requirement of who pays for what.
Ellie, can I send you through the master plan that I'm referring to and just sort of highlight the bits, and maybe you can chase up how has any of that survived through to the actual, consenting and work on the ground? Can I send that through to you to follow up for us?
And yeah, absolutely. And I would say that it's probably not consented. All that's consented in that space is Maya Field stage 1 and stage 2, and that's pretty much what you can see constructed on the ground. But definitely happy to receive that information, and I will come back to you.
Ellie.
Thanks, Ellie. Any other part-time to Ellie? Not. Someone move the report be received, please. Rangi Tonga, seconder. Leo, all those in favour, say aye. Aye. Contrary carried. Thank you, Ellie.
Kia ora, thank you.
That brings us to the conclusion of our agenda items, and we've just got this Parking?
The coronation entry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Adrian?
Yeah. So I guess I can leave that if you like. Is we had a letter from the DIA come through late March, distributed to the Department of Internal Affairs, saying they would supply a sapling and a plaque to commemorate the coronation of Charles and but the uptake's been so great that we source our own trees now, but they're providing the plaques. So we've, the councillors took up the ball and ran with it individually in the wards, which has been great because I've stepped back and left it to them, but they've all come to a conclusion of where to plant a suitable tree, what kind of tree. I know Chatelander have been working closely with Jill. Matamata have invited, have they talked with you? Have they just invited, but they have consulted?
I'm going to pass it right now to yeah, down in Tonga. We'll all be in one as well.
Yeah. So there's, I guess the thing is your participation. Excuse me, and are you comfortable with what the councillors have organised? They sort of had to get on with it. Would you, are you happy, or would you prefer to be more involved with it in the commercial perspective? I'm just interested to understand, developing this relationship as to how whether you would have liked to be approached sooner, or are you quite comfortable with what the councillors have organised? And
I think at this stage we're quite comfortable with what you had talked with James earlier, so yeah.
That's great.
So yeah, we're happy. exactly what's going on. Okay, so like I said, we have take care. Planting, and yeah, I don't even visit been drawn out that day.
Yes, exactly, that's exactly what we're, it's just to commemorate, yeah, that's great. I just, yeah, wanted to make sure we were open and that you were comfortable and you felt included, I think.
Now that we have been, if I reckon, we can report.
Yes, we don't want to offend, I don't want to be we're offending you in that space, that's important.
The three towns that will be slightly different, as all three towns generally are. You know, from the Morrinsville perspective, we're just pretty low key with Morrinsville. Really happy for Te Marama's involvement in the karakia, etc. And we're going to plant the tree and have some kai. So, yeah, pretty much that's what we're doing. No brass bands or anything. Unless you want to sing, Gary.
Was there
Reaver, I think, for us.
and
What have we got? What you got?
Oh, Reaver.
it's going out here.
Well, we're just in front of the library. I think I sent that email to you.
Is that important day? It's Marshall's Day.
Yeah, just say.
Yeah.
It's failing, but it's 11 o'clock. The porphyry. Yeah. So
Maybe time in the morning.
yeah.
It'll be a multitasking day.
Because I think it's 10 o'clock here.
10?
10.
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock tomorrow, 10 o'clock in Matamata.
Oh,
I think 11 o'clock on Sunday.
We did our
I just turn up and do the tree bath.
9, 10, 11.
Yeah, but even at the next day, it's on Sunday.
Marketing wandering.
Yeah, well, I have to cut that from here, that's all, so I can just, yeah, but it's just, the ward council have organised it and it's been really good that they've included, that you felt, that was really important that you were included, it wasn't just that you felt that you were, so that's cool, thank you.
We can plant the tree, keep growing your bacon.
Oh, right, and, yeah,
Just that our 2 more people will be there, so keep me involved.
Yeah.
cool,
Absolutely.
perfect, perfect, yeah. Excellent, because I think King Tahiti is going over to the coronation. I heard that on the radio this morning.
Yeah, well, he's in Tahiti now. He comes home, flies out on the 20.
No, I heard on the radio this morning. Coronation, he's coming. Wow, it's around. No, oh well, it'll go. So that's it, please. And Hanara, you wanted to bring up about the playground.
Playground cleaning.
Did she reach me to you to tell me about that?
No.
No, it's okay. So I guess I know a bit of it. On Sandra, actually Sandra, can you give an update on the playground? That'd be good.
Absolutely. So we are working in partnership with Matamata Futures at redesigning the playground at the Matamata Domain. We're really keen to partner with iwi, and we've got a couple of ladies in the Matamata Futures who are organising our very first engagement exercise. And I know they've reached out to the 3 iwi within Matamata, and we're hoping to hold that engagement on the 4th of May. So I might give Hinarangi a call. I can see that she's left, and perhaps Andrea to find out who the best person is from Rokawa to get on board. I know Ngāti Hawa have said Ari here is coming along as their representative, but would be really great to have representative or more than one from each of the iwi at that day if it suits. If not, we can work out a different date. We really want to make sure that that first engagement involves as many iwi reps as well as all of the relevant council staff and Matamata Futures team as possible, so that we get a really good base for that discussion.
Just asking Rangi Chilma to come on, Sandra.
Yeah, I'll be on.
Wonderful. I'll get the invite sent out to you.
Yeah, it's quite an exciting project for Matamata. Yeah. The playgrounds, we had $1 million set for next financial year, and the Matamata Futures came on board early and are doing a lot of the upfront work because there's any money budgeted in it this financial year. And so they're doing some of that legwork for us with council support, to really develop something that's because we so love Thomas Hart.
Oh, that's,
To a tiny
that's love the children. Yeah, that's
Great, isn't it? Yeah.
And then we've got one on the property as well, and then we'll move on to Tiara. That's the staged plan, but Matamata jumped in first because of obviously Future's the community group is driving it. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Sandra.
I don't think so.
That's it.
Yes.
Thank you. Let us come to a conclusion of our meeting. Gary, close this part on. And then shall we just go into the end of the screen? Take a break?
Yeah.
Yeah.
O te pai tātou nei hui. Tēnei wahanga tō tātou hui. Nere rā, i a mātou whakaaro ki a tu mātou tātou hui. Kia kapi ai te tātou hui. Nō re re tātou o te pai tātou kōrero tō tātou whakaaro i wāna ki ngā kampapa. E hore he nei ki mai tātou tēnei rā. Nō re re tātou ko tēnei a inga tēnei kia koe. Kia tātou pai tō tātou nei Manawhenua tahi nei i tō tēnei hui. I roto i tēnei tō ingoa e te atua ngā whakaaro pai. Kia hui ai ngā whakōrero, kia hui ai ngā whakaaro, kia hui no tēnei tā ki e.